Hello everybody, welcome to the Mod Institute. We're going to go through a tutorial on how to design a single unit 3/4 restoration in the anterior on PlanCAD Premium. What you want to do is download that zip folder onto your desktop or somewhere that you can remember where it is, and go ahead and open Romexis. Once you have Romexis open, it looks like I already have it open, so it's actually down here for me. So I'm going to go ahead and get my Romexis open. We're going to go ahead and add a new patient. Make a fake ID, and I'm going to call this patient PlanCAD Premium number 9. Okay, so we're going to save that patient. We're going to go to CAD CAM, and let's go ahead and import the case in as if we scanned it natively. So also make sure your dongle is inserted into your computer and that you have the PlanCAD Premium icon in your Romexis. But go ahead and go to Import CAD CAM Case. Make sure you're in the CAD CAM tab right here. We're going to import a single CAD CAM case and find that zip folder wherever that you saved it. It should be somewhere that's easy for you to remember. And then what you're going to do is open that zip, and it should be called something veneer 21 zip. And go ahead and get it loaded into where this text box is full, and then hit import. And you're going to find that it's going to take a good decent amount of time to get the actual files imported into Romexis the way that I scan them natively into the system, because what it's doing, it's transferring everything, all the scan image files over. Okay, so CAD CAM folder was imported. Now what you should see is this veneer 9 is in the system. Now, if you wanted to design in PlanCAD Easy, you would just double click that, but we're not. We're going to single click it just once to highlight it. And we're going to go in PlanCAD Premium. So we're going to hit our PlanCAD Premium icon right here. We're going to double click that. Should open the Plan Manager immediately, but pay close attention, because what's going to happen is we're going to get a little window on the bottom right that's going to pop up, and then you need to hit View in Dental Database. Click OK. That's going to import everything in, okay? So where we could just go ahead now and go to Design. Make sure for your material configuration, the PlanMill 50S is your default material configuration. Okay, so the first thing that it's going to do is going to ask us if our pre-op model is correctly positioned to our casts. And it is, because we did scan a pre-op into PlanCAD Easy, because in that software, in order to mirror image this tooth, you need to have a pre-op library. So we scanned a pre-op library. But for PlanCAD Premium, we really don't need it. So we don't have to worry about this. We're just going to hit Next. And the next step that it's going to ask us to do is, do we want to trim the models or anything? But before we get there, I want to talk to you guys about shortcuts on how to start figuring out these models on the keyboard. So first thing is A is antagonist. Okay, so if I hit A, it toggles on and off antagonist. If I hit P, it toggles on and off the pre-op. And you can't even see it because it's the identical scan. And if I hit S, it toggles on and off. See, there's the P. That's my pre-op. S toggles on and off the actual working arch to which we would need to be doing all our work on. And then these little things, don't worry about these little intrusions. That's actually down here. You could get rid of that. And you could repair the intrusions, and we could certainly do that in a second here. But go ahead and make sure S is the only thing that needs to be highlighted. Now it's asking me if I see stuff that I don't like to get rid of. Basically, whatever you circle, it'll highlight. So I could circle that, and then you double click at the end, and you could keep circling. Like, let's say you had to add another spot, you could keep circling. You could keep circling, and then you could right click to rotate. And bear in mind that it does go through and through if you have this select straight through clicked. So let me go to none and show you again how to select stuff that you want to delete. So let's go ahead and practice this, because it's important. Let's go ahead and circle this here. Now, I have select straight through on, so it's going to get all of that as well. If I didn't want that, let me hit none. I would go select only surface. So then if I did this and double click, it's only going to get stuff that the camera sees. So see those there? But if I did something like this, it's not going to go through to this side. If I had select straight through on, it's going to go through the whole thing. Okay, so let me hit none again, showing you guys the different tools. Select the entire surface is this select by click. And what that's good for is if you had like floaters that were not attached to the model, you could hit invert and then delete, but there are none. Let's make a floater. So go to select straight through. Let's just do something like this. Okay, don't get your actual prep. Hit delete. So now we have all these little floaters. Let's say your scan came in like that. By the way, roll the ball in and out to zoom in and out. Right click to rotate, and click both the left and right mouse buttons at the same time to drag. But that also kind of activates this annoying select. So if you like accidentally started a select, just go ahead and finish it and double click like that to get it off. Okay, but now let's show you a fast way to get rid of all those floaters. You would hit select by surface, you would hit invert, and then delete. Okay, very cool. So that's kind of how you clean up your model. We have a bunch of like, I would call this bad data here. So I want to go ahead and select straight through, just circle all that and hit delete. Don't worry about, these are actually not floaters. That is this view contact there. Okay, very good. So I'm going to hit next. And we're going to fix by cutting away intrusions. This is what you want to click almost all the time unless it's a full mouth reconstruction or an occlusal appliance or a removable partial denture. Okay. Now, the margin marked from PlanCAD Easy transferred over. So let me just say, there's a couple ways that we could look at this. If we turn off color texture, we see we have this stone view. Okay. We could also change the way the color looks. We could go to tools, we could go down to magic lantern, and I could take this lantern and basically it's like a lamp. I could shine it wherever I want the light, and then I could go to more and go to special and ambient light. I could brighten this thing way up if I needed to. Let's say it was a posterior tooth and it was super dark. You could literally shine a flashlight down in those margins with this tool. Once you have it bright the way that you want it, you can come in here and hit moving off and then just get that out of the way, and it will stay like that. Okay. So let's go ahead and clear the margin. It still keeps this little line from where the margin was in PlanCAD Easy. Let's go ahead and go to draw, and let's go ahead and draw it in just to practice. And basically you're following the line from PlanCAD. I actually like marking my margins in PlanCAD Easy. You don't have to. You can mark them natively right here. But I really like the margin marking tools in Easy. It's phenomenal. Double click when you get to the end, and then you have basically move margin where you're able to stretch that margin. Okay. Actually like it better right there. Don't get confused here. This is a three-dimensional model, so you see the arrow on that little opaque window that pops up. You want to be at the apex of the curve, so not down the slope, kind of at the apex right there. Okay, so once you have that, we're going to go ahead and hit next. And we're going to set our path of insertion. Software usually does a good job at doing it for you, but you could rotate the model. Now, see the red and the yellow. So red indicates an undercut on the prep. Yellow indicates a path of insertion issue with the adjacent tooth. So You want to try to avoid both. Okay, so you want to be looking straight down. See this all be white. We have a little tiny little weird undercut right here. It's gonna automatically block out any of those small undercuts. I'm gonna go ahead and set from current view and lock that in. Hit next. So now this is our cement spacer. One thing that's kind of worth noting, this is a prepped veneer 3/4 crown, basically. Pretty aggressive, but I still like to go over some of the settings here. This select zone from margin here, I like that to be around 0.3 or so, 0.25 to 0.3 for veneers. If it's a no prep veneer, I'm putting this on pretty much 0, maybe 0.1. That means like a tiny band of ceramic's going to be touching the margin. This 0.3-ish is going to be a good value, and you can see that green line changing live, so that kind of lime green. So if I make a thick band versus a tiny band, that basically determines when this zone is going to start, this 0.7 margin gap. Okay, so I like it to be, like I said, and you could also come in here and type in 0.3. About 0.3, so I want a thin band all the way around that. Now, this yellow zone is the actual gap, and 0.6 to 0.8 is what you want for your veneers, because there's going to be this additional spacing of 0.02, 20 microns, that's defaulted in. Now, so basically, if I did 0.8 here plus 0.2, that's 100 microns. Now, let's say I had an area that was a little, that I wanted to maybe increase that cement spacer, like a sharp corner here. I could go to this, add another zone, paintbrush, paint a zone, and I could change that zone to be whatever I want. So let me show you what it's doing live here. So I could change just that zone. And it's not in addition to the yellow zone. It is its own zone. So I can make it thinner or extra. Okay. Maybe you were a little under reduced right here and you wanted to increase your ceramic thickness, so you're going to drop this down to 0.5. Something like that. Perfect. The next thing is the border. This is really important. I'm going to cut this. Tools, sectional view, slide this. Let's talk about this border. This throws everybody off. Let me get to a good angle here. Yeah, right about here. For veneers, the beautiful thing is it defaults to 0 everywhere, and that's actually perfect. You could get some chippage in the mill if you didn't have a preparation. If this was, say, a no prep veneer, sometimes you could get some chipping, so you could kind of increase these angles. But this horizontal represents, this line number 1 represents kind of the bump out from the margin. This angle 2 only comes into play when you kind of pair it with the angle 3. And what these, it's basically showing you right here, but what these do is represent basically the emergence profile of this restoration from the margin. And to the degree at which you have a click out with your Explorer, it's almost like a mill safety zone as well, where you could get some margin boost here, where you, even if you had a no prep veneer, you could have this additional, so if I come here, this angle here bumping out. When you set everything to 0, it's basically going to emerge immediately from that margin with no pre-calculated contours in place, which is what you want for a veneer. But some of you on your crowns and things like that, it'll default, I think this is something like 300 microns. I think maybe we'll have, it might look something like this. Actually, this angle is usually pretty low. And you might say, I don't like that. I don't like that angle because it feels like it's over contoured. And that's fine. That's that's kind of there for a reason though, and it's there to let the mill be able to machine this perfectly. And you have to understand also that everything's zoomed in at 500 times your mag. So initially it looks like it's a giant thing, but when you actually mill it and see it on the tooth, it's nothing. But with that said, this zone is not editable unless you go back into expert mode and change it. It's kind of like this protected zone on the design, so you want to try to get it right initially when you're designing these. So let's go ahead and put everything back to 0. Okay, let me get rid of this slice plane so we can see where we're at here. Now I have the generic library here. I'm going to just go ahead and pick HD, even though I'm going to actually be mirror imaging this tooth. Let me go ahead and turn where's my jaw scan? I'm going to make it more opaque. There. So once you pick a tooth, I'm going to pick HD. Control rotates it. Okay. Shift, it grows the tooth. Just clicking it moves it. So it's kind of like if you're familiar with PlanCAD Easy, this is like the Plan tab. So we're going to go ahead and rotate this tooth, get it to where we want it, align everything just like that, and we're going to hit next. And it's going to shrink down to the margin. And it's so easy. This software is insane. Now we have our basically freeform tools here, and this is like rubber tooth here if you're familiar with PlanCAD Easy, but it's basically predefined sizes versus the little ball. So don't really focus on ridge, entire tooth. It's basically look at the colored area where tooth parts represents a good portion. I like tooth parts a lot for getting proximal contacts dialed in, and because it doesn't really deform the anatomy, it kind of moves everything all together very nicely. So there's that. Then there's the freeform tools, which enable you to, let me turn off my magic lantern here because it's making everything so bright. Did you guys see how I did that? I turned off that magic lantern. I only really needed it for marking my margin. So once again, these tools enable you to move big things or small things. So if you wanted to move just a tiny little corner, like maybe you wanted to see how there's this incisal embrasure here is kind of a little over accentuated. If you pick just ridge, come in here and just start focusing in on just this tiny little embrasure like that. Okay. The other thing that we have some powerful tools here is we have these freeform tools where we could come in here and we could, this is kind of like dropper. We could come in here and add anatomy. We could come in here and paint small little areas here. Okay, we could accentuate things. Add remove. If you hold shift, it's going to be remove. So you come in here and you could start accentuating things, and then you go to your smooth flatten, put it back on the paintbrush, and you could start to smooth some of those things. Which her tooth doesn't have a ton of anatomy. I'm just showing you some things that you could do. Another thing that you could do is these paint pull. You should be very familiar with this. This is kind of like in PlanCAD Easy. This is like the define and paint feature where we could paint an area, okay, and just move that area. So maybe you wanted to move just a lobe. And what it does is it shows you the hard and soft zones, the green being the hard and the golden color being the soft zone, where it's going to start manipulating. It won't go past that soft zone, if that makes sense. So that's really cool. So if you go now, let's go to our adapt, and let's turn on A for antagonist. And we can see we have a mark there. I think it's just an artifact. let's go ahead and mount this in the articulator so we can make sure that we get the proper anterior guidance here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to expert mode. Okay. Tools. Don't be scared in expert mode. Tools, start articulator. And click and drag this. Now you have a few ways to get this into the proper orientation, this model. It's like upside down and backwards. You can hit control and you can start rotating it, and you can come in here. And this is really, you know, when I designed this, it was in PlanCAD Easy. The single unit, I didn't scan the full arch because I wasn't going to anticipate putting it into an articulator, so I don't have a lot of reference points. But let me turn off my S for my working model here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to automatic positioning, click between 24, 25, click the premolar cuss tip, and hit perform alignment. And that's going to get that kind of perfectly on that plane. And I'm going to hit OK. Put S back on to turn on my model. And let me see, I probably accidentally didn't pick 24, 25. So let me rotate that. Go back to rearticulate models. Turn off my, unless she has that much of a discrepancy. Yeah, that's 24, 25. So go to automatic, set in sizeable, you want to be right between 24, 25. And then cuss tip as far back as you scanned, perform alignment, okay. So now let me turn on my working model, that's better. So I'm going to go ahead and start articulator movements. Hit OK. Go back to the wizard. And what I want you to see is all these now are highlighted: dynamic, protrusion, lateral protrusion. Turn all of those off so where you just have antagonist selected. Hit A for antagonist to turn that off. And see we have no colors here. Okay, let's go to show contacts instead of view intersections. View intersections means it's going to show you only when the meshes are actually penetrating through one another, whereas show contacts will also show relatively close contacts and give you a better indication of strength. So now that we have that, I'm going to turn on my antagonist here, and you can kind of see what we're going to do. We're going to go through protrusion, and we're going to go through lateral protrusion right and lateral protrusion left, and we're just going to see what's going on here. Start with protrusion because it's the only one that really matters for this particular tooth. And I'm going to drag, and it looks like we have no contacts, which is fine. Yep, this is too easy. I don't even know. I wanted to show you guys. Let me like artificially bulk this out. Maybe we could pick up some interferences. Okay, there we go. So now as I'm going through my protrusive movement, I could see I have massive interference here with that. So the color that you want, let me go now to my smooth flatten. The color you want contact to be, if you were trying to gain contact, is this color right here. So smooth flatten, turn that a little smaller here. It's this kind of same kind of Hawaii oasis. So it's the blue, but with a little bit of green mixed in. And what you would do is you'd want that to be the whole entire excursive path. And we start to get heavy right here, so I'm going back to my smooth flatten. So that whole path is going to be hitting equally. And we don't have any contacts during lateral intrusion, so I don't have to worry about that. So it's just protrusion. And during protrusion, and we could go through this in another video if you're designing a multiple unit case, there's something that, like, Dawson will call it a long centric, but there's some things that you need to consider when you're developing guidance on a patient. So one is the angle of the guidance, and this is typically related to Frankfurt horizontal plane and the long axis of the tooth, where most individuals have this about 1 millimeter flat, relatively flat. It's a 35-degree angle relative to Frankfurt horizontal that basically allows the patient to kind of have a little bit of freedom during the first few seconds of protrusive movement, that 1 millimeter, and then it goes into a more steep angle where you get into that main guidance. And so it's important to build those types of things in on big cases and try to, this case we're just replicating kind of what the patient has, and due to the lower dentition they don't really occlude on this during excursus, but we put back a little bit of excursive movements. Now, what if we wanted to mirror image this tooth? I mean, this design's okay. It's maybe a little bit too much anatomy. We could adapt the proximal contacts by going to adapt. Let me show you those by hitting adjacents here. You can see the color when I hit adjacents. Look at both sides. That's a little bit strong. So if I go to my proximal here and hit cut intersections, you're going to see it's going to turn it into that lagoon blue. That's perfect. So it instantly, I like to hit cut intersections, not shape preserving adaptation. I never use shape preserving adaptation on anything. Always just cut intersections. Seems to be the best clinically for me. Beautiful. But let's take it one step further now. I mean, this is basically it, but let's go ahead and go and try to mirror image this. So let me turn on my, by hitting S, my model. I'm going to go to expert mode, right click and hit mirror copy individual tooth. Now, be super careful when you hit mirror copy, it automatically puts that pre-op on. Like, turn it off. Make sure it's unchecked here. Pre-op is not checked. Hit mirror, click that tooth, and look what it does. It gives you this kind of shell. Just rotate it. Don't worry about the position. Like, don't put it there. I just rotate it until it's pretty close and hit replace. Because then what it does is it enables you to move that shell, that mirror image, wherever you want it. Okay. And you could turn off this anatomic design if you want. Same tools. Shift will grow it, Control will rotate it, and just clicking it will move it. Okay, so go ahead and get that mirror image perfectly the way that you want it. Okay, so we're kind of lining it up, everything like that. That looks beautiful, and we're going to click OK. Now we're going to jump back to Wizard, okay, and we're going to hit Next. Don't worry about adapting anything right now. We're going to hit Next. And so this is where it's going to ask us now, let's hit Next, adapt to pre-op scan, and we're going to hit Adapt. And now it's going to take our generic tooth and morph it into our mirror image tooth. Okay, so now we're going to hit Next. Now we have, once again, all our tools at our fingertips. So I'm going to go to Smooth Flat, and I'm just going to get rid of some ripples here. Smooth all this out. Smooth the lingual. And to get rid of that kind of tooth, I'm going to hit P to get rid of that pre-op tooth. And kind of like in PlanCAD Easy, sometimes we have to go in here and do tooth parts and adapt those proximal contacts back. I like to get them a little bit stronger than I need to, because I'm going to show you why in a minute. So I'd rather have it be a little bit stronger than I want. So So you can see that here. I'm going to go to my freeform, my add. I'm going to I'm going to go to add here. And from the lingual here, this concavity, I'm going to go ahead and extend that. Maybe just a little bit of thickness here on the lingual, like that. And you want to get this perfect. So you're going to go ahead and curve that incisal edge back to where you wanted it, like that. Now, what you're going to do is we're going to fix the proximal contact. So we're going to turn off our model by hitting S. And we're going to come up here to show adjacent. And it's actually not that bad. I'm going to make mine a little worse, maybe indicative of what you guys have, potentially strong contacts like I told you to get. So these are way too strong here, and we're going to go to adapt and cut these intersections using this cut intersections feature for a proximal. Okay, now depending on what you have, either show intersections or show contacts, depends on the color that you're going to get. For show intersections, you want this kind of blue color to be coming in and out of view. For show contacts, you want this kind of oasis color. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and smooth that just a little bit so that we don't have any concavities there. And same thing over here. Smooth that back a little bit. Perfect. So once again, the color that you get here is based off of what your settings are up here. So show intersections versus show contacts. I like to use show contacts, because show contacts most aligns with PlanCAD easy. That's what I'm used to. Okay, this tooth, we picked a tooth that doesn't really have a lot of occlusion here, so there's no sense in me going through that with you. But essentially, you would go to adapt occlusal cut intersections under static, not dynamic. I don't like to ever cut under dynamic because it goes through the extreme movements that we don't really need. And that is it. This is like the easiest thing ever. We're going to hit next. And that is our merged veneer. And if you wanted to, you could even go to freeform and continue to freeform this. Should you, like at this stage, find that maybe there's something that you want to adjust, like potentially these green areas. If you want to shrink those back a little bit. Depends on your taste of proximal contacts and what you guys like. I like my floss to pop in there, but I don't like super heavy contacts in the anterior, which would cause binding and lack of seating of the margin. So I will save those changes, and that's it. That's what you would load into the CAM software to mill. Pretty easy. Typically in real time when we're not training, this is a under 5-minute process, if that. Super powerful software. And I think that once you learn the ins and outs of it, you'll grow to love it like I have. It's definitely my favorite software that I've ever used. All right, everybody, I hope you learned a little bit this Mod Institute online course, and we will do a lot more of these, so stay tuned.